As they fly across the meadows, every day their hum gets softer. Will humans silence their buzz, or is there hope for the bumblebee? Bumblebees are among the most important pollinators in the Netherlands, if not the most important. They contribute to the sustainability of both wild ecosystems and agricultural crops by collecting pollen from flowers. Unfortunately, there has been a decline in the population due to various factors, with the most prominent being agriculture. In this video, we visit 3 types of semi-natural habitats: wildflower areas, pastures, and open fields. Agricultural areas include farmlands, both empty and filled with livestock or crops. In each area, we observed bumblebee densities and investigated the difference in population. With this in mind, the research question: what are the implications of semi-natural factors and agricultural landscapes on the presence and distribution of bumblebees near Wageningen? We approach this research question by comparing literature about the impact of natural factors and human land use on bumblebees. The basic traits and nature will also be discussed as well.
Throughout the winter, queen bumblebees hibernate. Past literature suggests that the habitat for overwintering is different from foraging and nesting in terms of spatial and characteristics. Overwintering habitats are generally underground, such as in shaded areas near trees and banks that do not have dense vegetation. After the hibernation, the queen bee then starts a colony. Bumblebees live in a colony. Each bee has their designated tasks based on the caste. Worker bees, the female bees, forage, rear offsprings, and defend nest. Meanwhile, queen bee focus on reproducing. In most cases, there is only one queen bee in a colony. Drones, or male bees, only live to fertilize the queen bee. Despite so, drones play a huge role in maintaining the gene pool of the hive. In general, a colony of bumblebees have a lifespan of not more than a year. The bumblebees' nests vary. Underground nests are burrows or nests that were abandoned by mammals. Meanwhile, above-ground nests are cavities of trees, logs, rocks, and even buildings or walls. Bumblebees have preferences for flowers. Bumblebees search for flowers with abundant nectar and pollen that also have high nutritional value. In general, they like perennial plants with purple or pink flowers. The preference is species-specific. Long-tongued species forage on flowers while hovering, while the short-tongued sit on flowers. Foragers which return to the nest emit pheromone to the other bees in the colony. This leads to a stimulation for foraging behavior. Bumblebees have an oily substance throughout their body. This substance marks flowers. Bumblebees can detect these with their senses and avoid flowers that were marked, even when the substance are from another bumblebee species.
Despite their obvious physical differences, the bumblebee is often confused with the honeybee, so let's dive into their differences. Honeybees efficiently exploit resources by performing a waggle dance to communicate resource availability to the rest of the colony, whereas the bumblebee forages independently using a unique technique, buzz pollination. This is performed to allow access to flower species that would otherwise be limited to them. When they vibrate, they extract pollen, fertilizing both natural and agricultural areas where honeybees are lacking. Honeybees live in hives with around 10,000 bees, but bumblebees have smaller colonies, consisting of 100 individuals. Honeybees have been domesticated for about 4,000 years before Christ. On the other hand, bumblebees remain wild, able to withstand cooler temperatures. This is indicated by preferring a higher sucrose concentration of a cooler flower than a warmer flower with less sucrose content. This indicates the morphological changes bumblebees have evolved to survive in harsher environments. When going on a walk, you may notice different bee species foraging simultaneously. However, Not everyone is happy to be there. In 2013, a study found that honeybees responded similarly before and after encountering either another honeybee or bumblebee. On the other hand, bumblebees abandoned the flower when encountering a honeybee and foraged elsewhere, thus indicating that honeybees reduce the pool of resources available to bumblebees. In the northern climates like the Netherlands, bumblebees are actively in the early season when it is still cool in temperature and other insects are relatively inactive. In general, bumblebees love places where there is a high variety and availability of flowers, suitable nest sites, and low disturbance. Understanding their habitat preference is not only important to them, but also the ecosystem that depends on them.
The most common landscapes for bumblebee nests are grasslands, agricultural lands, and forests. The presence of bumblebee nests correlates with the flower resource availability for bumblebees. On many occasions, multiple nests can even be present close to each other due to the high number of preferred flowers adjacent to the nests. This is to increase the efficiency of foraging. When comparing grasslands and agricultural lands, it is likely that grasslands offer more diverse flower species that are interesting for bumblebees. This is why bumblebees are more commonly spotted in grasslands compared to agricultural lands.
Bumblebees prefer a variety of flowers and nesting locations. Bees that are more selective, active later in the year, or have long tongues have a lower chance of survival. The opposite stands for generalists. Most of the bumblebee's predators are smaller and much more dangerous than one might think. The larvae of the wax moth, the cuckoo bumblebee, and the beetle lay their eggs in any nest but their own. Their larvae are provided with unlimited food, ravenously eating everything in sight. Within a few days, the nest ceases to exist. Some other cuckoo species and nematodes exhibit host-specific behavior, feeding on one host, eventually killing it. There is no better guarantee of survival than someone else looking after your children. Some bird species target bumblebees, such as the red-backed shrike, removing the sting by rubbing the bee against a branch. Other animals include badgers and rodents. Climate change, as we know, causes extreme heat waves around July and August. Bumblebee densities decrease. Queens wake up from hibernation earlier than they're supposed to, but reach a devastating end due to the lack of food during winter. Lastly, climate change has resulted in a later phenology, reproducing later in the year when resources are limited due to already dried flowers. Urban and industrial development has diminished bumblebee habitats. Dutch agriculture is among the most productive in the world. Clover, otherwise known as green manure, is the most common source of nutrients for bumblebees. They trap nitrogen in the ground, enriching the soil. Products are being produced at a faster rate than ever, relying on synthetic fertilizers. Clovers cannot compete, eventually dying. 40,000 hectares after World War II were reduced to 10,000 with the rise of agriculture. Since flowers were less, nitrogen disposition in the ground increased, promoting more grass growth, increasing the need to mow and diminishing even more wildflowers. Pesticide use of neonicotinoids in monocultures limit plant variety. They disrupt navigation and reproduction of bumblebees as well. Such a globally used product has been found in pollen of wild bees, disrupting behavior and activity. The species habitat theory states that the size of a habitat is analogous to the survival of a species. Thus, depending on the environment, bumblebees are divided accordingly into different subpopulations. Current field and meadows have a fraction of the flowers that were there a century ago, and often only a few species are in full bloom for a few weeks. Therefore, this highlights the importance in a balanced disturbance, ensuring the ecosystem's capacity to support these diverse populations, because every buzz, every bloom, every bee matters.
From the agricultural areas we visited, we found 0 bumblebees. However, we found multiple bumblebees in the semi-natural grasslands we visited. In the Wageningse Uiterwaarden, we even found multiple queen bees in the area. Bumblebees were found close to flowers. This indicates that there were multiple colonies present. From our findings, we assume that bumblebees prefer semi-natural grasslands that are abundant with flowers. Our findings match the literature that we researched, hence supporting our research question: what are the implications of semi-natural factors and agricultural landscapes on the presence and distribution of bumblebees near Wageningen? Bumblebees are mainly present in semi-natural areas with abundant flowers. Human agricultural activities such as pesticide use and natural factors, namely climate changes and environmental conditions, have decreased the presence and distribution of bumblebees near Wageningen. Therefore, this supports the need for preservation of bumblebees as agricultural activities and climate change accelerate.